Okay, well, I'm under 30 as well. I forgot to stand. Well, first of all, I work for a small business. I have a small business myself. I hear from small business owners all the time. Well, first of all, the minimum wage that the Liberals brought in. Just call it what it is. It isn't a minimum wage. It's a minimum inflation. Everything has gone up. Business owners had to lay off people because they couldn't handle this. So how do we keep people here? Well, we get rid of the big government and big regulation that we have right now. We can't keep up like this because business owners just can't handle it.
But Patrick, how could you do that if you were the lone libertarian MPP in the province?
The lone libertarian? Well,
or if you were a handful of libertarians, but how could you do that? How could you bring down the big government if you're the...
Well, first of all, we wouldn't, right now, like I think you mentioned earlier, we have how many regulations in Ontario? 380,000? Why do we have so many regulations? Why do business owners have so many regulations? Why do we have this minimum wage? It's not helping anybody. It's $15 an hour isn't actually helping anybody because the food prices, everything went up with it. So a lot of these places automated the jobs. The easy jobs are automated. The people that had jobs have been kicked out.
So what are we doing? What would you propose to do to get young people to stay?
Well, allow businesses to thrive. Cut the red tape, let businesses thrive, and you'll get the young people staying. When people are able to be creative, they'll fight, and they'll start jobs, and they'll start businesses. And that's what I believe.
When I moved to the region, I had already lived in the U.S. for 5 years and lived in Geneva, Switzerland for a number of years as well. Coming out of the smallest town of Stratford, I have a lot of pride. When I moved to the region, I encountered two young ladies that were at the dog park as I was walking my little dog around. And they were sitting there going, "Where are you coming from?" And I told them where I came from. And they were like, "Why did you move here?" It was disheartening. I just moved here with all this optimism, and I hear the youth saying, "Why?" I think it's important that we, as a society, invest in ourselves. Government has a place. We need a just society, and that's what government's supposed to provide, that just society. So on the minimum wage, as an example, that people complain about raising that cost of living, the Green Party has proposed that we should have offered a 2% payroll decrease, letting that money not come from business and being placed onto consumers, but letting the government say we're just transferring the tax to people that need a standard of living. That's it.
Well, I think it's about two things, and Patrick touched on one of them. It's jobs and it's housing, and those are the two big things that you need if you're going to, once you graduate college or university, and move out into the world. So jobs, again, he's right. It's the strangling red tape and regulation that's making it difficult for businesses to exist here in Niagara. Businesses are the small to medium businesses, make up 50% of the economy here in Niagara, and they're the backbone of not only the economy in Niagara, but in Ontario. So if we're making it difficult for them, then, like I said earlier in my opening remarks, they can't expand, they can't grow, and they can't provide more jobs. And then affordable housing has been a big discussion lately with a lot of people. We've seen the house prices skyrocket. I bought my first house in Welland in 1997 for $74,000. I think that house sold about a year or so ago for $250,000 or more, and kids just can't afford it. And there's a skills gap as well that I will touch on later.
So for me, as a retired teacher, it all starts with education. It starts from when you're born until, you're always learning until, you pass on, hopefully. So a high first-class quality education system is very important. We need to continue to invest in that. We're upon right now the fourth industrial revolution. Everything is becoming digitized and technology, and we need to keep pace, because if we don't, the world is going to pass us by. We need quality health care. In between elections, when it was announced that the Welland Hospital was going to be closed.
The question was about keeping young people here?
Absolutely. So we need quality health care, right? If we want to keep people here, we need education, we need health care. I continue to fight to keep our hospital open, and thank goodness it was done. We need policies to continue to attract businesses. You know, like I said, my son had to move away, and it breaks my heart. We need some good, top quality, middle class paying jobs, and we need to support the companies that want to come here. And believe me, from what I'm hearing in the community, companies are going to want to establish themselves in Niagara Centre.
Specifically, the two reasons that our young people move away are because they have huge debt and they need to pay it off, and they have no opportunities. And so the NDP platform is that, first of all, we're going to turn loans into grants so that kids don't have huge debt when they graduate from college and university. And we're going to create 27,000 cooperative placements across the province of Ontario that will not only provide opportunities for young people, but it will provide opportunities for businesses who can hire those young people and give them experience and make their businesses better as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So in terms of youth retention, I've actually put together a pretty decent plan, I think. I was bugging my friend Jordan about it for the last 3 weeks now, writing it up, so I'm sure she's tired of hearing it, but she's going to hear it one more time. So first of all, in terms of education, you know, I went to Trent University. I have that student debt. You know, I totally understand what it's all about. You know, it's the trouble to try to pay your bills and pay that student debt. I'm doing $300 a month in student. Thank you. I'm doing $300 a month in student debt. It's ridiculous. So I want to incentivize programs that correlate to in-demand jobs, similar to what Jeff Birch said, via grants. But I'm also wanting to introduce a private members bill that says eliminate the prime plus interest rate on the provincial level for those with outstanding student loans. So that was a good point that I touched on.
If I can ask though, Stephen, how does it specifically keep people in that? I know that could be a benefit for people across the province. How does that keep young people here in this region?
Got it. So people have to leave to pay down their debt. They got to find a job in a better place to try to pay down their student debt. So in terms of minimum wage, I want to tie the minimum wage to the real GDP so we can factor out inflation completely, because that's costing people money with the inflation. You don't tie a minimum wage to inflation. It's ridiculous economics. It's Keynesianism. It's liberal circus economics. So, and I will liberalize the beer and wine market too, and sorry.
You start rolling, you can't stop.
Okay, but we're good. Just so you guys are aware, many of you already answered or know that you've written out your own questions. We're going to be getting to them as we get through the night. As journalists, we sort of think we're the smartest people in the room, but we're not. So your questions will make it. However, Joe, I wanted to ask you specifically about, and Stephen just touched on it, which is the minimum wage.
Yes.
And the debate around this seems to break down in really one of two ways. Either you're a business owner or you own a farm and you're saying, look, this is going to kill my ability to run my business and I'm going to have to lay people off. And we saw what happened to Tim Hortons when minimum wage was...
That was their own fault too.
Right. The other side of that, though, is that if we don't pay people more, that the old minimum wage is just not good enough, and if we don't raise people's standard of living by raising their salary, things are just going to get worse. So, where do you stand on the issue of minimum wage as it stands, and what do you propose in terms of either providing people a better means of making a living if they're on minimum wage, or assisting businesses who are saying this is just costing us too much?
There has to be a partnership between government and small business and the individual. Right now, we see people looking at Tim Hortons as an example, where they see a cup of coffee go up 20 cents, and they're thinking, oh, it's because this guy just got a minimum wage increase. How's that fair to me? The Green Party looked at it and said, why didn't we just transfer that? Take payroll tax, take some incentives from the business that cause them to not want to hire people, and give it back to the people in wages. A basic income is important to people because, let's be honest, in Toronto and some of the other city centers, it's getting harder to live. And they're pushing into our areas because they think they can support themselves here, driving up housing prices here. It's not because locals are buying more houses, it's because people from the GTA are coming here saying, I can afford a house for $280,000, whereas that house in Toronto is $2.5 million. I touched on it by saying the basic income, which I give credit to the Liberal Party, they put that in place. That's something that's very progressive. Harvard professors of economics promoted it. People in Europe are looking at that. And I think the pilot project they did in Smith Falls and a couple other cities in Ontario will show benefits because they say, here, you have an income now. You have to not think about whether you can afford drugs or food. You can support your family and start looking at reaching out and finding a better way.
Are you suggesting, and really quick because I don't want to hog up your time, but are you suggesting that minimum wage ought to be replaced in some fashion by the guaranteed income?
I think they work hand in hand. I think you don't. The biggest argument with the basic income is that it de-incentivizes. You're giving money to people. I'm saying the basic minimum income is saying we're going to cut the red tape out, stop all these services that really are to provide for that welfare state that people are worried about, and start saying, here's basic income, here's a minimum wage. If they work out, this is how you'll be taxed moving forward. It shouldn't be a one or nothing game. It should be finding the best solution that works for our society right now. Thanks.
So in terms of the minimum wage, I think it's about finding balance. We've heard from the business owners that this was implemented far too quickly and it's really been an impact to them. They're not saying that they don't want to pay people the minimum wage, but it was put through far too quickly for them. So PC government is not against the minimum wage, but looking to give a tax incentive or a tax. Anyone making minimum wage won't have to pay an income tax, and then freezing it at $14. And we feel that that's a good balance between people working for minimum wage and the businesses to give them some time to catch up. Because we've heard it time and time again. I've sat at many business roundtables, and again, business owners aren't saying that they don't want to pay that, but it's just been implemented far too quickly. So we want to look for that balance, and I think we'll achieve that.
So April, I don't believe it's been implemented far too quickly, though. For me, it's carrot or cuts. If an individual wants to pour blood, sweat, and tears into a company, I think they deserve to be paid a fair living wage so that they can get by. So our platform will provide $15 starting January 1st, and then yearly after that will be tied to inflation. And Doug Ford's plan to keep it at $14, people who are working minimum wage right now will be out of pocket $1,500 at the end of the year, and that will continue to climb. And I remember in the 2017 budget, the NDP, who are supposedly for the people, as opposed to the PC party, voted against the increase in minimum wage to $15 and actually started the last election in 2014. So I think we've been very progressive. We're doing some pilot projects with a basic guaranteed income, and we'll see what happens when the results are done. Thank you.
Thank you. So it is all about balance, and let's remember how we got into this. It was 9 years of minimum wage freezes, consecutive years by a Conservative government, and then the last 15 years of the Liberals doing absolutely nothing about it. That's how we got into this situation, and not doing anything for 20 years and then all of a sudden raising minimum wage is what the problem is. So the NDP policy always has been that we have evidence-based reasons to know what is a living wage, what is an adequate minimum wage. So we tie that to inflation and cost of living, and we make sure that businesses have predictability and security because they know that the minimum wage will gradually increase with the cost of living. Thank you.
So the question was tied to minimum wage and business, so I'm going to touch on this really fast so, I don't get timed out again. I think my parents overcharged me at home. So anyway, in terms of back to liberalizing the wine and beer market, yes, there was a start to it, but it's not the best it can be. Interprovincial trade between wine and beer is banned. What? It's good for farmers, it's good for small business owners.
The specific question is about minimum wage.
And business, right?
Yes, but
Okay.
it's not actually the leader permits to trade.
Okay,
So-
fine. But you got that point out there now, so it's good. In terms of the basic income pilot project, you know, it was a study and that's all it was. They didn't go anywhere with it. It's dead in its tracks. So in terms of minimum wage, I already said, I want to tie it to the real GDP. I want to tie it to economic growth indicators. Gross domestic product, guys. You have to factor out the inflation so you don't have an inflated wage. You have to get a real wage. You need to have that accurate wage. Am I in support of the rates of the minimum wage? Yes, because it was too darn low, of course. But we got to get better at the economic side of it, and we're not going to do that with the Liberals or NDP.
Right, like I said earlier, I believe the minimum wage caused inflation, which it did right across the board, from food to gas and everything. I heard that you're talking about minimum wage for the workers. Everybody's talking about minimum wage for workers. What about minimum wage for the business owner? If he has to pay every single worker $15 an hour, his take-home pay is much lower. He might not be able to afford that. So what happens? Automation and job cuts. So yeah, some people might have jobs for $15 an hour, but then the rest are going home with no jobs. So this minimum wage has the damage has been done, but we can't raise it to 15 right now because we just can't afford it. It's going to put a lot of people out of business. You look at McDonald's, look at the touch screens, look at the self-checkouts. You think they did that for fun because they had money to blow? No, it's because minimum wage, you couldn't afford it. Thank you.
Okay, I think this question is probably mostly for the representatives of major three parties, I guess, but it doesn't mean that everybody else can't chime in. There's a new Ipsos poll released yesterday that shows, maybe it's not surprising, but it shows that 74% of Ontarians wish for different party leaders. There is a credibility issue with politicians overall, I think that's fair to say, as there is with journalists. We look at ways in our industry in which we can follow rules, follow standards, do whatever we can to try and curb that. But to think that 3 out of 4 Ontarians wish for different party leaders shows that there is a question of leadership. What do you think your leader would need to work on to improve that?
I think my leader, well, I think he's honestly getting a bad rap. I think that there's been a lot of comparisons made to him to other leaders in other countries. We've joked that the premier seems to be running an election against an entirely different leader from an entirely different country. So I think communication. I really believe that people want real people to run, and so they get really excited and they get behind that. But then sometimes when those people aren't perfect and aren't completely polished, and they make some slip-ups, then everybody tends to kind of go after them, and they want real people. And I think that my leader is a real person.
I'm just, what's the definition of a real person? Because I'm
Sorry. Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Someone that you can relate to, someone that you feel is genuine and relatable. And, I hear that a lot in my community. They want someone who can kind of roll up their sleeve, boots on the ground, show up at events, and really relate to the people.
But he's a divisive person, so there are some things that he could clearly do. Maybe, could you name one thing that you think, I guess you said polish.
Well, communication. I think communication would be one area possibly to improve. But when he's been out at the different rallies, he waited at the one rally that we had in St. Catharines till the very, very end, taking pictures and shaking hands with people. He was the last person there aside from a few of us. And I think that really goes a long way. It really speaks to who he is, and he listens. He really listens to the people. We've had a few things happen along the way, and then he has gone back and he's made some changes, and he's not afraid of it. He didn't call it a flip-flop, and there was no real ado about it, and he listened to the people, and that's what he's all about, and I'm really proud that he's representing my party.
Well, the same question to you about your leader, because a number of the questions here have to do with credibility or perceived problems with credibility with your leader. What do you think that Kathleen Wynne could change to help people not wish for a different party leader?
Well, first off, I'm not Kathleen Wynne. I'm running on my own name and my own values. I live in Niagara Centre and I want to represent the people of Niagara Centre. But that being said, I know Kathleen Wynne. I was a union president for the Francophone teachers when she was the education minister. I got to know her very well. She's forthright, she's honest, she works hard, she cares about
We're
people.
asking what she has a problem. They all have a problem. 74% of Ontarians want different leaders.
Well, I think social media has something to do with it. I think all the negativism that you see on social media has something to do with that for all three parties.
To the question then.
Well, no,
I'm looking for somebody to admit, you know what?
Well, she's not popular. I know that. I know she's not popular, and I know her, and I can tell you she cares about people. So what can she do? Well, maybe she can be more open to, being fuzzy with individuals. She's very engaged. She loves people. She's done a lot of good things. She's probably been the most activist premier that this province has ever seen. And I would be proud to work for her. I know her, and I will be a very influential member of her caucus if elected.
Okay. And Jeff, for you, Andrea Horvath, who, well, depending on which columnist you read, is either not really a player or is emerging as the player, or whichever columnist you read is all different. But she needs to reach out and get people too. What is it about her that could change me?
Well, it's a difficult question for me to answer because everything seems to be heading in a really good direction for our party right now, and she's polling as the most popular leader. I think my answer would be that she needs to continue to improve in areas where she's been improving, and so I think, for example, giving speeches, she's not been traditionally as good at giving speeches as she is, say, shaking hands in Tim Hortons, but she's improved drastically in the last year, and I think it's shown.
If I could, Jeff, though, it's
Sure.
interesting you phrase it that way. She generally does poll better in terms of popularity compared to Mr. Ford and Ms. Wynne, but she's also the most popular when compared to a deeply unpopular premier and a deeply divisive PC party leader. So
Totally agree with you.
Isn't that metric just a little bit sort of odd?
Those are excellent points.
Not my intention. Not my intention.
Change for the better.
It's like a vaudeville act up here. My point is, her metrics are higher against two leaders who aren't necessarily doing that well. So by comparison, doesn't that mean that, well, she performs well, but the bar isn't that high? I guess is the question I'm saying.
You're not going to get me to say I don't like her, Grant. I think she's doing a great job. And I think what's helped her is that she has a platform, a fully costed platform that she believes in. And I think it shows in the way she speaks.
Don't get me wrong, when I trade barbs with the other political parties, I like everybody on this stage. Benoit, you take a beating from Steve Seuss tonight, it's okay. But anyway,
I like you too.
thank you. But you did say about Kathleen Wynne, forthright and honest. Let me say a few words that might entice the audience. Orange, e-health, Sudbury. How many OPP investigations? That doesn't sound like forthright and honest. Then go and blame social media. Okay, fine. But anyway, I think the whole party system is broken. It's just completely broken, I'm running as an independent because I don't believe in the party system anymore. Yes, I did run for a political party and I liked a lot of leaders. Yes, I met Andrea Horvath. Yes, I met Rob Ford. They'll be nice to you because they want your vote, but they don't care about you. Political parties care about your vote. They don't care about you. And when we start realizing that, we can build better communities with better representatives who only want to fight for Niagara Centre.
Thank you. Patrick, I don't know anything really about your leader.
Alan Small. He's a great guy.
I'm not sure. Can anybody in here have names the Libertarian Party leader? So I guess you could tell us anything about what he might change.
Well, Alan Small, I can't really say anything bad about him because the guy, he's not doing it for the money. He's given up his own time, his own energy. He's driving around all over the province. So he really is fighting for what he believes in. So I can't stand up here and tell you guys that there's something wrong with him, because he is really a great leader.
Can you tell me who my leader is? There you go. Mike Schreiner is a wonderful guy, and he's a good leader, and he's got the support of our party, and he's going to probably, and with knock on wood, make the breakthrough for the Greens in Ontario. I think he is well-spoken, and he hasn't slung mud at anybody. If anything, he stood up and said, I support some of the ideas of these parties. I want to work with government, not be partisan.
Let's look for a way then, tell me how he could be different to, even just to get himself out there and become a face that people could pick out of a lineup more easily.
I think he's getting out there quite a bit. We've been focused on the three leaders since this campaign started. Let's be honest, City TV had the big debate and no one knew about the Green Party. And there was a lot of Greens that got upset. There was a lot of Democratic voters out there that were saying, we're not seeing representation of the people out there. There's a group of us that care about what happens, and a government that isn't about fighting each other, but working with each other. He offered ideas on the payroll tax reduction for companies to the Wynne government when they were talking about raising the minimum wage. He's offered ideas. He supported the idea of a minimum wage, minimum income. It's about working together. No more of this mudslinging stuff. It doesn't work for us as Ontarians.
Benoit, how are we doing?
Pretty good, Grant.
Good.
How about you?
Okay. Good. If you read the standard, you all read the standard, yes?
Well, Tribune.
The same difference. You keep me
Okay.
gainfully employed, so I appreciate that. If you've been following the paper, one of the things that we focused a lot on the last 2 years has been government expenses, government spending. I'm sure April might wish we do that a little less at regional council. But when it comes to government spending, there's one story provincially that has jumped out, I think, in every single voter in this province. That's the provincial deficit. The Auditor General, Bonnie Lysyk, says that although the governing Liberals pegged the deficit as $6.7 billion, in actuality, that deficit is closer to $11.7 billion. Now, that is not a trivial difference. So our question to you is, how did that happen? Why was the deficit so badly underreported by the Liberal government? And what if re-elected to Queen's Park as the government, are the Liberals going to do to ensure that A, the deficit gets under control, and B, that it's accurately reported by the government and it doesn't take the Auditor General to come after the fact and say, you've actually underestimated this by half?
So first off, I would say that the Auditor General has gone rogue, we could say. She has not listened. No, let me answer.
Let it speak.
Let me answer. People who are recognized in the field of accounting or actuarial sciences will say to you that the way that the provincial government has accounted for the deficit is the right way. It has been accepted by most provincial parties. It's been accepted by the Conservatives over the years. And in fact, Patrick Brown and his People's Guarantee were using the same numbers. So that being said,
Patrick Brown was the leader.
well, so we don't know what the Conservatives are going to do with their platform at this point, so we don't know what their numbers are. So that's one thing. So the Auditor General, I think, is off base because the recognized accounting principles she's not adhering to when most experts in the field say that the numbers that were reported were correct.
So says that the Liberal government failed to account for the financial impact of its Fair Hydro plan on provincial coffers and improperly treated those revenues in its books, you're saying she's wrong.
I'm saying that she's not using recognized accounting principles that have been in place for a number of years. So I think that that needs to be said. Secondly, the debt to GDP ratio, I think, is very manageable. The payments on our debt right now are about 8 cents on the dollar, and we inherited from the Conservatives back in 2003 when the deficit we were paying 15 cents on the dollar. So we've actually brought that down. So our government has.
So what do you think the actual deficit is then?
Well, it's what was reported in the budget, which is $6-something billion.
Jeff, you got a minute? I mean, you have a minute. I'm not asking you to come over and have a sidebar with us. Go ahead.
So one of the reasons that we had Kevin Page, who's a parliamentary budget officer, fully cost out our complete program prior to the writ drop is because of this uncertainty created by the Liberals over budgets and over deficits. And it's part of the reason why our platform is a balanced approach, which our promises, well, there are a lot of them, and they are expensive. They are all costed out, and they are paid for by a combination of not only deficit, but also taxes on people who make more than $200,000, on luxury cars over $90,000, and on the largest corporations. And we also find some savings in the budget by, we believe that there's a lot of money in administration that should go to frontline services.
If I can ask Jeff,
Yes.
the issue the Auditor General has is that the deficit was underreported by her accounting, almost by half.
And it was.
So,
I believe.
from the NDP's point of view, if you were to form a government, what would your party do to ensure that the government books are accurately reported, as opposed to needing the governor or the Auditor General rather to come in and say that this level of error had been made?
I think that was the point I was trying to make, is that we do the same thing as we've done with our platform, which is to, in advance, get someone who knows what they're talking about, a third independent party, to give their opinion, so that it wasn't just us as a party saying, look, this is our deficit. You have an actual third party opinion on it.
Largest sub-sovereign debt in the world. Okay, let's start there. You know, if the Auditor General is going rogue from the Liberals, let's help her. Let's help her. We're going to help her. And that's why we're going to increase, that's why in my plan, I want to increase funding to the FAO and the Auditor General so that they can go more rogue from the political parties. All for that. They got to be accountable and independent because that's their mandate. They have to be fair in the reporting, yes, and I'm sure the Auditor General is being fair in the reporting. You know, these are smart people in the financials. It's the Liberals who cook the books on hydro. It's the Liberals' problem. It's not the Auditor General. That's like blaming the rain for if a crop got destroyed or something. It's totally ludicrous. I got nothing more to say on that. Auditor General is important. FAO is important. Let's increase their funding. Let's get the Liberals out of there.
That's pretty good.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're having lots of fun here tonight, and I like everybody's participation, but plotting takes more time away from words from the candidates, and we want to hear what they all have to say, so I appreciate you just holding on that, if you would, please. Thank you.
Okay, so since our government's so large, I'll bring this up many times today. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and I feel that there wasn't any honesty there. I think everybody can agree somebody was doing something wrong along the way. So I agree with Steve on a lot of things. I just think that we need more honesty in this government. If they're willing to cook the books or lie, what does that mean to us? We really need honesty, so that's what I think.
7,128,000 taxpayers as of 2017. Take that $5 billion, break it down. That's all of us paying for a possible miscalculation, or maybe something that's totally allowable. But all I know is debt is debt. The Green Party offers ideas that take that into consideration. Some of the parties are going to offer you choices of taking big corporate tax cuts, which doesn't help anybody. We're the lowest corporate tax province in Canada. Some are offering you a lot more expenditures. Candy. I'm asking you to think about what is practical. If you were running your own home, would you want to spend money as some of these parties have and are proposing to?
Just to clarify the question, I mean, the Auditor General is essentially saying this massive deficit was grossly underreported by the Liberal Party. If the Green Party were to form a government or have significant sway over the party that does, what measures would you want to see put in place to ensure that the deficit is accurately reported by the city government?
I would assume that we would take into consideration international accounting practices that would be certified, as any corporation would, and those practices should be understood and agreed to by all the parties. It shouldn't be waiting until we start the card game that we decided what the rules are. We should be already in front of the line.